Okay, we talked a little bit earlier about the little clip that we showed. Some people clearly have a lot to learn about patience. This is one guy. He's clearly one of those people. He's honking his horn at an elderly person trying to cross the street. He's just not too patient, so she hits the car and the airbag deploys.
This was so staged.
I know. But he gets, of course, the worst of it there. So there's your lesson. Try to learn a little more patience.
Well, we all can learn a little more patience. And the truth is, the old saying is wrong. Patience, not just a virtue, but it's also a skill.
We asked you earlier to think of a time when you have lost your patience. So now, Studio 5 relationship coach Matt Townsend is going to teach us some concepts to help us so we don't lose our cool.
And look at our teacher, our great example of patience here.
Shut up. It's about time. I've been waiting for like 20 minutes. So sick of this. So here's the deal. Anybody got any, did you come up with a good idea, example, of where you're impatient?
Yeah.
Because your wife gave me two.
Did she?
Yeah. No big deal. We don't want to go there.
I'd narrow it down.
So I want everybody doing this. Everybody out there, think of somewhere where you blew it, where you kind of went off. And it can be anything. If you notice, patience can be a bunch of stuff. It could just be certain situations. It could be certain expectations. It could be certain people. Sometimes we're impatient just at certain times. Have you ever noticed that?
Yes.
Not to get too personal. Family, like night, kind of wrap it up night time when we're with the family.
Yeah.
Start to get real impatient.
Yeah.
You do?
Really impatient.
You just want it to be...
Yeah, like you don't kick the ball. Don't kick the ball. Don't kick the ball. Don't kick the ball. Pop the ball. Can't take it any longer. How much longer are we supposed to do that? So what we're going to do today is we're going to show you, and this is what I literally do in my workshops. I walk people through about 4 steps to kind of start taking charge of your impatience. Impatience, I think, is the big cause of a lot of relationship issues. Okay? Think about it. Your biggest fights, your biggest withdrawing from each other when you're impatient, you can't take it anymore, the biggest offenses maybe you've had in your relationship. So here's the deal. You got your ideas? You got your examples?
Yeah.
Now, we're not going to dig too personal because you guys got some seriously big problems. Here's the first thing I want you to do. Recognize, okay, quiet, I'm working here. Recognize your danger signs. Every single time we have an impatient moment, there's usually signs that come up very early that it's,
like
we're going to start having a moment. Like, you start to get a little angry. You start to get, there starts to be more misunderstanding in the moment.
Okay.
Or you start having negative thoughts about the situation or the person. Like, when is this dumb lady gonna move out of this line?
It gets negative.
The minute you start to feel negativity swelling up inside of you, the minute you feel the increased need to either fight with somebody or flight or run or have a conflict or a confrontation or start to run, I need you to pay attention to that.
Do you think most people sense that? Most people can feel it? Or is it?
I think everyone can feel it. I think most of us just drive right through it.
We're not aware of it.
It's like a red light we didn't see.
Yeah.
We just kind of go right through it. The rule, though, is you have to recognize the danger signs. Because if we don't start paying attention to the signs that are going to precede the blow up and the impatience, we're going to have a hard time controlling anything. Start paying attention. The basic goal here is there's always signs and they're inside of you. Okay, so start just noticing. Think back.
I think this is the hardest step sometimes, to stop yourself in the middle of the emotion, whether it's anger or frustration or sadness, and just freeze the emotion. So here's the great thing about all of this. You don't need to fix it in the moment right now. Right now, we're all going to blow it. We're all going to be impatient. But let's now think back to when your 2 examples you were thinking of. Go back to that, and were there some signs ahead of time that this probably wasn't going to go so well? Were there certain parts of the situation, like you shouldn't take the 3-year-old to the store, and you took the 3-year-old to the store, and the 3-year-old was tired. So you took a tired 3-year-old to the store, and then there were long lines. You went at 5 o'clock at night. So there's certain conditions that you started setting up, and I bet as you're thinking about your situation where you lost patience, there's certain signs that you just kind of drove right by. What would you call somebody that had the same accident on the same corner at the same time of night every day of the week? An idiot.
Yeah,
an idiot. One reason I think we're impatient is because we're not paying attention to those signs. Okay, so first thing, watch the signs. The second thing you got to know, patience isn't just a virtue. Sometimes we think it's just a character trait.
Right.
Sometimes it's also a chemical reaction, and our brains make a chemical reaction. There's part of our brain that's called the low brain, that's the amygdala. It's the thing that makes us fight or flight. When that little amygdala fires, guess what? Game on. Because the minute that little brain fires, it says you're being threatened, you need to take action, you need to change your course. And when it goes off, it pumps adrenaline and all of these endorphins and pain and stimulants into your system that makes you ready to fight.
So it prompts you physically.
It prompts you physically. So then all of a sudden this impatience starts to have chemistry attached to it, but it all begins with thoughts. Like, when is this lady going to move her cart?
But if it's chemical, how can you stop that? What do you do?
This is exactly the key. There's a low brain and there's a high brain. And one of the things we teach couples is you've got to learn to get out of the low brain and get into the high brain. If you can't get in there quickly enough, your body's going to be prepared for the fight.
The high brain being?
The high brain being it's called the neocortex.
You're in control.
And it's basically, the neocortex is how we do everything effective. We plan it out, we think it out, we prepare it. Notice most of us don't get in the low brain and get reactive at work. We can't do that. We'll get fired.
Yeah.
So we get all controlled. But at home, when we're not going to get fired, all of a sudden the low brain takes over and says, no, I'll cover it. Wah, wah, and it starts going off and hurting people.
Kind of goes back to you wouldn't treat your boss sometimes the way you treat your spouse because you're working in your high brain.
Now, the way to get in the high brain, the fastest way to do it is to ask yourself a question. Your brain, if you start to ask yourself a question in the moment that you're ready to go off, you'll actually have to get in the high brain to answer the question. You've heard people say, pause, count to 10. Take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Sing a hymn.
Go
to that happy place. They have a million things to do. Most of those are in the high brain. But what I would suggest you do is you just stop, pause, like when you're starting to feel the anger at the lady or whoever in front of you or the kids that are running out, pause, stop, and then ask yourself a reflective question like, how do I want to be remembered in about 10 minutes from now?
Yeah.
What's most important to me
10 seconds
right now? Exactly.
Okay.
What's the most important thing I can do here? What happened last time I went off? These are all questions that you ask yourself. Now, by the way, that takes character. That's why this is hard. But if you don't do it, your body gets hijacked, the chemistry comes, and then you just act. Then you inevitably are going to regret. Okay?
And so many people say, hey, I can't help it, it just overwhelms. But you can help it. Like
you totally can help it.
Get into that higher brain with
Get in the higher brain. Now, what I teach is it takes a million times to do this. And the neat thing, and the third step we're talking about, is intentionally start learning why you are impatient. Most people I found don't learn. They just don't learn enough. And if they don't learn enough, then guess what? Guess what's going to happen? If you blow it today and you don't learn right after that, you're going to blow it again tomorrow. So my rule is basically start to learn.
You've got to know yourself and know your reactions.
So when you start to learn, I would like, even if I blow, impatience is my biggest deal. I am highly impatient. I mean, it really is. And it's not with everyone. It's like with my children, in certain moments when I'm tired and I'm a little worn out and feeling overwhelmed or stressed, I'm much more likely to be impatient. You know how I've learned that? 1,000 situations in that moment. Now I start to create protocols. So some questions you might want to ask yourself after you've blown it and you're frustrated and your heart's going a million miles an hour and you're sitting watching ESPN because you just threw the kids in bed and they're all up there hyperventilating. Then when all that's going on, you go back to your happy place and learn. And I'd ask myself, what part of that problem was I? What rule did I break that I know I should have been doing better? How do I want to be remembered by my kids? What are my kids going through? What were my kids trying to talk to me about when I was so impatient? Now, but notice, every one of those questions impact me and start to create some change. Then the neat thing is, once you've got some ideas, then you've got to exercise your character to go change. Now, that sounds real simple too, but let me tell you the simplest way I've ever found to do this. After I've blown it and I've kind of gotten away from the moment and I go think about what part of the problem was I, how do I want to be remembered in the future? That's kind of a vision question. What do I want most out of life? Then I ask one question that I call the character question, which is simply this. What's the most important thing I can do right now to make this better? And I literally wait, and I pause, and I wait for my character to kick in and my conscience to kick in, and it'll immediately tell me what I should go do. And it might be, go apologize to your wife.
Right.
Or go take the dog to the vet that you just kicked.
Whatever
now that you do that. But,
no, you take the action now.
And you go act. And then what's neat about it is once you've acted, you've now created a new pathway in your brain, and it'll remember. So we only need about 400 more of those.
Yeah.
And boom. You've mastered patience.
We're going to stick all of Matt's stuff on our website, all the tips, so you can do this as well, and you can walk yourself through so we can all reroute it and be better in the future, right?
Tons of stuff. Be patient, kids.
Take the dog to the vet.
That's right. I'm here for you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Matt.
Coming up next.